in order to have a good, safe, and enjoyable time, I think planning is one of the most important keys. And I think when you plan and you can prepare some items beforehand, and you know, it's going to allow more time for you to enjoy your guests when they come over. And so I think thinking about what you can cook beforehand, thinking about a plan to put in place for cooking that is going to allow one to have a better time. Martin Bucknavage, I'm the Food Safety Extension Program Specialist in the Department of Food Science with Penn State Extension. One of the important things is thawing it, getting it ready. So when we thaw it, we want to make sure that we're thawing in the refrigerator and of course allowing for the amount of time that it needs. So again, that planning process to get it ready and let it thaw in that time frame that it's needed. When you're going to handle the turkey, of course, one of the things that we don't want to do is we don't necessarily need to wash that turkey. I think back, I know, my mother and grandmother would wash the turkey in the sink. And, the problem with that is when the water hits that turkey, it splashes all over. And with that, it does have the tendency to bring bacteria with it. And that can end up on your counter, or as you pick it up and you move it, right, getting the droplets that are there. When you're cooking a turkey, of course, one of the most important things is cooking it to the right temperature. Oftentimes, we don't plan enough time, and we always are rushed to finish that turkey up because we have guests that are waiting. So allowing for sufficient amount of time for that turkey to get to the right temperature. And, you could always finish your turkey early and let it stand. It's going to hold heat for a good period of time and actually get to a point where it's a lot easier to serve. The juices will reabsorb back into the meat. So finishing early is a better thing rather than rushing it through. But we want to get the turkey to the right temperature, certainly a minimum of 165. And oftentimes in the breast meat, you'll measure that and get that to 165. And people may cook it more, right? You may cook it to a higher temperature, 168, 170, 172. And as that temperature gets higher, the meat becomes more, I think, easier to chew. And I think there's a lot of value to that. When you're cooking breast to 165, the leg meat oftentimes will get to a higher temperature, which you'd want to do as well. It's always good to cook the leg meat and the dark meat to a little bit of a higher temperature because, again, it gives you a better mouthfeel for that. But again, at the very minimum, 165, and again, you could go higher, and it gives you a little level of security as well with that. You want to check it in a few different spots with your thermometer. You want to use a thermometer to check it, right? You don't want to rely just on that little pop-up thing, right? You want to go through and check the internal temperature of that, sticking a digital thermometer or a dial thermometer. These are all pretty cheap nowadays, and it's a good thing to have, and it really not only will make the product safer, but it'll actually allow you to cook it to the right temperature that you're going to find for your enjoyment. Another thing is stuffing. One of the things that you have to make a decision on is whether to pre-stuff your turkey or post-stuff your turkey or serve your stuffing separate or cook your stuffing separate. And I think there's a lot of value to either the last two, which is either sticking it in afterwards or cooking it separate. When you stuff the turkey beforehand, and I understand there's a lot of, it tastes better in some cases, but it is going to absorb the juice, and you have to get that internal temperature of that stuffing up to 165, which could be very difficult, and what that'll mean is sometimes you have to cook that breast to a higher temperature than you would like. The two primary pathogens that we worry about with poultry are salmonella, and salmonella is an organism that if you were to ingest it is likely to cause very, very severe diarrhea, vomiting, really where you're going to be sick for 2, 3, 4 days. And it really becomes problematic in people that are in high-risk categories, right? People who are older, who can't fight off the disease, or young children who haven't developed a good immune system yet. And so in these populations, it can be worse than that, right? And a lot of times people could end up in the hospital or even worse. The other organism that is of equal concern is campylobacter. Campylobacter, again, is an organism that has a high association with poultry. It's oftentimes found on the skin as well as in the cavity. And it's one of those organisms that, again, it's going to cause a very similar type of illness with a number of days of diarrhea. And again, it can result in hospitalization if in those high-risk populations. I think another thing, of course, is just understanding allergens and understanding if there's anybody that's allergic to certain products. Sometimes people are allergic to gluten. And so you'd want to have that and understand that for your guests that are coming over. In some cases, you may have to prepare, your stuffing separate if somebody is allergic to something like gluten.